Taxpayers for Equal Appraisal's voice. It's time for ordinary property taxpayers to speak out on the issues of the Texas property tax mess and to point out low-cost solutions that will clean up large parts of the present mess. The hardest parts of most jobs is getting started. Let's get started on August the 19th when the Texas House Committee on Property Tax Relief and Appraisal Reform takes public testimony in Houston. Time and place to be announced. Suggested solutions will be presented in this video, but let's first hear from some VIPs on tax problems. We're fighting these property tax issues. We could lose some bully pulpit support, and that document kind of explains it.
Okay, well, I am for bringing down property taxes. I agree with you. We were supposed to have a lowering of property taxes, and it hasn't happened, and I'm going to fight for lowering property taxes.
Coach, how are we looking there?
I think you look good. Squat down a little bit, Dan. There you go. All right.
You're too tall.
You're too tall. You're doing a good job. Appreciate it.
Rick, are you for lowering the cap on appraisals?
Downtown Paint Creek, everybody wants to see lowering appraisals. Cap them.
The Goliath Harris County Appraisal District of the Texas Appraisal Quagmire was charged with violations of law and ethics caused by its chief appraiser, Jim Robinson, and appraisers Sharon Boyd, Roland Altinger, Jason Cunningham, at the Board of Tax Professional Examiners meeting on November 28th of 2007. Evidence was presented by written documents, tape recordings, and DVDs on that day, plus March 19th of 2008. And a video of numerous Harris County taxpayers asking for the hearings to be scheduled in Harris County and to be open to the public was presented on May 28, 2008. You see, there are two systems of taxation, one for the informed and one for the uninformed. So we're asking all these people at Costco to be smart, informed buyers and taxpayers.
And be informed.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Coach.
Okay. And Mr. Robinson here on his picture in the paper playing politics with property taxes. Judge John Lindsay's property started off at $196,600, then it was lowered to $177,500, and then it was lowered to $127,300. And then Mr. Robinson says, I have forgotten who it was who brought it to my attention. Oh yeah, I believe that. Over here we find that our friend Mr. Robinson was playing politics with our friend John Lindsay. And you see here that Sue Johnson and her husband Roland were the one who sued the appraisal district when he fired Sue Johnson because she blew the whistle on him. Well, that whistle is tooting now, loud and clear. And we hope the people will join together so that we the people can bring the hearing for Mr. Robinson, Sharon Boyd, Roland Altinger, and Jason Cunningham. Okay, we're on, Christopher. Now, I know I just told you about this secret meeting in Austin where we've charged the Harris County officials with ethical and law violations, and they're going to have a secret meeting where only Coach Hart has 30 minutes. Would you like to see the meeting moved to Harris County in open public forum?
Amen. You bet.
What do you think about that situation?
It should be open. Period.
Okay.
My money, your money should be open.
What is your name, sir?
My name is Shawwa.
And I know that you and I have already talked about the story about the secret meeting in Austin where the Board of Tax Professional Examiners has closed the hearing on the HCAD chief appraiser and the other people who have violated law and ethics. What do you feel about the situation involving the closed meeting and perhaps moving here to Harris County?
Harris County is great.
Okay, and it should be what kind of meeting here?
It should be very short and
Open?
open, yes.
Okay. Well, we'll pass your vote along to the politicians, and we sure appreciate you taking time.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Board of Tax Professional hearing in Austin, Texas on May 28th that we just found out Thursday was closed to the public. And we found out that only Coach Hart would go to the hearing by himself with none of his witnesses, and would be given 30 minutes. And any questions that they might ask me and answers would come off my 30 minutes. So Dawn, I know you don't know too much about it, but what are your feelings about the meeting and moving it here to Harris County?
It should be moved to Harris County, and it should be open to the public. It's our tax money paying for this.
Well, I tell you what, it's amazing that the people in Austin don't get that message. And Don, your problem, if I was to ask you to become a new Texas Ranger and commit, if I could call you and maybe arrange a certain day where they were having a meeting there so you could join hands with Betty and I, and there'd be more than just Betty and I against 12 chief appraisers and 12 county judges and 12 superintendents. I hope someday we can have that happen. What do you think about that idea of going
That
off?
would be great.
And what, John, tell the people in Austin and everywhere, what prevents you from doing that? It's not because you don't want to, but you've got what?
I have to make a living.
And you have your family duties.
Yes. 6 days a week I go to work.
6 days a week. Well, we certainly appreciate, Don, you taking time to make your voice heard. We can only hope. But however, the Board of Tax Professional Examiners has set up on August 12, 2008 in Austin a 20-minute period to hear taxpayers for equal appraisals arguments for open public hearings in Harris County. That meeting at 10 a.m. in Suite 520 of Tower 2 at 333 Guadalupe Street in Austin will be open to the public for public comments. Taxpayers for Equal Appraisal welcomes your help and your voice on the 12th. Taxpayers for Equal Appraisal will provide all 5 board members this video and a written brief in support of open public hearings in Harris County. The written brief is titled, David Taxpayer versus Goliath HCAD. This video provides evidence for the brief and other taxpayers for equal appraisal charges against HCAD. David Taxpayer versus Goliath HCAD. Chief Appraiser Jim Robinson of HCAD by law and his affirmation confirms his selected employees when following his policies and his instructions do thereby bind his personal accountability for their actions and edicts inflicted on taxpayers. All David taxpayers should take note and understand how 3 HCAD documented happenings in a real sense affect their property taxes. First, HCAD's March 14, 2008 letter reveals 212 employee terminations in 2006 and 2007 out of 500 plus staff. If you had a choice, would you do financial business with that mass appraisal staff? Second, HCAD's own June 18, 2008 PowerPoint presentation to its board of directors projects 400,000 taxpayer protests in 2008 and projects to 425,000 in 2009, with increasing percentages of protests going to formal ARB hearings year after year. Why? Let's listen to HCAD's Associate Chief Appraiser, Ms. Terry, tell Mr. Merkel, ARB member, a major reason why.
And he gets on the elevator. Yes, sir, Mr. Merkel?
It would probably also be helpful to have a change in our appraisal procedure to help cool down the number of protests. Specifically, there's some conditions of properties that recognize that reduce the value, and yet, even though we reduce them for 1 year and satisfy the problem, the appraisal goes right back up or higher than it was the year before, and so the same people have to come in year after year with the same problem.
Okay, I can't get into that. You bring up a very valid point. There is I'm not going to say an excuse, there is a reason for that. I feel it is a very valid reason. It would take me probably 10 minutes to explain that to you, except that, and maybe at a subsequent meeting, I'll deal with that question, Mr. Merkel, because I think it's well-founded. The law requires that the appraisal district establish all properties at current market value. Okay, and there are certain indicators that we use within our system to make that happen so that we're in compliance with the law. By nature of the process, which is a mass appraisal process, and I always explain that mass appraisal is like mass anything, like mass confusion and mass, anything that you do in mass, there is the propensity for error and these kinds of things, and that's what makes our process so important. We're going to have to cut the questions at this point. We got another video for you, and here again, we want you to watch and pay very close attention, and we'll have a little bit of a discussion when it finishes. Thank you.
Third, Mr. Robinson's direct actions and his approval of his employees' actions that have bent the Texas appraisal education tree and violated all their sworn oaths not to use HCAD resources for personal gain while employed by HCAD have been put into the light of public scrutiny by David E. Montoya, Executive Director of the Board of Tax Professional Examiners, Open Record Disclosure Revelations, titled, "As the Twig is Bent, the Tree Grows," which are well worth taxpayers' detailed review. Mr. Robinson has violated the Texas Open Meeting Act by the blocking of public access to ARB panel rubber stamp meetings. His selected employees even contradict each other as his policies and instructions flap around. Evidence by affidavits, DVDs, by eyewitness sworn testimony is overwhelming and irrefutable.
My name is Eric Caposta. On Friday, the 25th of June, 2004, I, at the request of Coach Hart and Betty, accompanied Betty to the HCAD ARB offices to take photos of a typical protest hearing for use as supplemental material on a website dedicated to informing the public about their rights in protest hearings. Coach Hart's concern about his arrhythmic heart condition, made more acute by his dealings with HCAD's police force the previous day, led to his asking me if I would take pictures in his stead. Upon entering the HCAD ARB office, second floor, the receptionist, after hearing my request to take pictures of a typical hearing, asked me to wait while she got the attention of a person who would be responsible for an okay to this request. I was thereafter talked to by a man known by Betty to be Mr. Michael McCluskey. I told him my reason for being there, and he let an assistant fetch another person who would make the call. During this time, 2 uniformed security guards had arrived and stood close by in an intimidating manner. When the man entered the room, who did not introduce himself to me, but again known by Betty to be Mr. Todd Allen, a special investigator for HCAD Special Audit Division, I again requested to take photos of protest hearing, which I told him I understood to be open meeting. Not looking at me, he responded by saying to Betty that she knew the rules. Then he explained that the rules are pictures could only be taken on Wednesdays and Fridays on the 8th floor at the board meetings. Betty responded by saying that we wanted to take photos of one of the typical protest hearings to show the protest hearing room's layout. I asked then again, were not the hearings open to the public? And he said photos could only be taken on Wednesdays and Fridays at board meetings. At that point, I realized that we were in the same position that Coach Hart was in the previous day, stonewalled. This confrontation was the cause of Coach Hart's medical condition, so I was aware that his aggressive manner towards Coach Hart, which led to a trip to the emergency room at Memorial City Hospital, was not going to change for me. Todd Allen's belief that HCAD's chief appraiser's opinion policy was greater than state law